Yes, so namaste and welcome everyone for our webinar on the next generation of Hindu youth leadership. And in this webinar, we're going to introduce the inaugural Hindu Youth Leadership Convention. It's being presented by the Sri Meenakshi Temple Society, the Hindus of Greater Houston, and the Hindu Temple of the Woodlands. So they're going to be having a conference on July 29th. And in that conference and convention, it aims to empower Hindu youth by nurturing a sense of pride and heritage and equipping youth with skills and knowledge to become leaders within our communities. And so that future event is going to serve as a platform to foster a stronger bond within the Hindu community, inspire future generations, and encourage active participation in shaping a positive future. And Hindu University of America is proud to be a part of this important initiative, a sponsor. We're going to be there in person as well. So with that, let me introduce a few of our panelists, or all of our panelists speakers today, starting with Dr. Domotaranji. He's at the Meenakshi Temple board as the adjunct executive director, and he's also the Next Generation Hindu Youth Leadership Convention chairman. He was a group chief executive with AECOM, an international engineering, construction, and consulting company, and he retired in 2019 after being with them for 35 years. His passion is to continue to give back to the community and to mentor, inspire our youth to embrace our Hindu values and culture as they continue our successful family and professional life. Next, we have Dr. Aya Samni Dororajan, who's a critical care medicine, HCA Houston Medical Center. And he says Hinduism and spirituality have helped pave the way for much of the prosperity in my life. This is what he said. And as he's embarked on fatherhood, congratulations on that. He seeks to have a successful career with a focus on overcoming the challenges of modern day society and finding the ways to keep them at the forefront of our family values. And our third panelist is Anjali Agarwal, who is a dedicated individual, has been actively involved in the Hindu community of Greater Houston since 2019. As an intern on the board of Hindus of Greater Houston, she has been instrumental in supporting various organizations and mandirs across the region. Anjali is pre-med student at Texas State University, where she is pursuing her passion for medicine. And of course, we have Sri Kalyan Vishwanathan, president of Hindu University of America, who had his 21-year association with Pujya Swamiji Dayananda Saraswati, with the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam. He's been heading the ship at Hindu University of America since 2018. And I'm going to hand it over to him because he's been critical to developing Hindu University of America and making sure we're creating space for youth engagement, bringing people on board, and making sure Hindu University of America is a platform that partners with organizations like the Hindus of Greater Houston, like the Meenakshi Mandir, like so many other people who are joining us today from around the world on this webinar. And if you haven't yet, please put in the chat where you're zooming in from. I'll give you a shout out later. Kalyanji, with that, let me hand it to you to give us to get us started, and then we'll hear from our panelists who will give us their perspective and all of that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ankur, for the introductions. I'm going to keep my remarks very, very brief, and then maybe later on I can add something towards the end. First of all, the engagement between the young people, young Hindus of America, with the Hindu University of America is very critical and important for the purposes of Hindus expressing themselves in American society as Hindus. And what I have noticed is that we Hindus are, we are successful in our respective disciplines, our respective fields of professional pursuit as engineers, as doctors, as academicians, as businessmen and women, as entrepreneurs, you know, as consultants. Hindus have made a tremendous mark in not only in American society, but also in Hindu diasporas around the world. Yet, we've always sort of struggled with expressing ourselves as Hindus in the public square. And sometimes we get caught off guard by a incoming, challenge, and we're not quite ready to deal with it. This initiative of engaging the Hindu youth in Houston, that has been taken up by the Meenakshi Temple, the Hindus of Greater Houston, and the Houston Temple of Woodlands, and everybody else who's engaged with it, is a very welcome initiative. And I hope that this is the beginning of many such initiatives around the country, in fact, and around the world. So I congratulate everybody who is participating in it, who's initiated it. And this initiative has the wholehearted support of Hindu University of America. And we hope to be involved in multiple ways with this initiative going forward. With that, I welcome the panelists and hand it back to Ankur to get the panel started.
Great, thank you. And I think we're going to start with the PowerPoint. I have it in PDF, so I can't go to full screen, but Damoji, I will share, and you can give us some background on how this initiative started and some of that background information.
Okay. Thank you, Ankurji. Thank you, Kalyanji. First of all, we at the Meenakshi Temple, Hindus of Greater Houston, and the Hindu Temple of the Woodlands are very grateful for the opportunity to present in this webinar and participate. And also, we are so honored and pleased that Hindu University of America is also a co-sponsor for this convention. Just a quick background, then I will go to the slides. This Hindu youth participation in our temples and our community, we have been talking about that for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, or more than that at many places, many forums. But when you sit down and think yourself, what are we doing for that, rather than talking in groups, then about 2 years ago, that one of the things that I told the Meenakshi Temple board when I joined them, this is an initiative that we should all undertake rather than keep on talking. So we initiated an online survey with all the youth in the Hindu community in Houston, and personal interviews, town hall meetings, and asking them what it will take for you to be more involved in the Hindu community, more involved in the temple and the leadership and all those things. One observation we made was that when the children are young, maybe until age 14, 15, until they high school, the parents bring them to the temple and they participate in various classes, heritage classes, Vedanta classes, those kind of stuff. And after they go to college, and after they get married, and after they get to work and family, their participation has reduced. Or in some cases, they have not been to the temple for a long time, and so on and so forth. So in this process of the interview and everything, what we learned is that our Hindu youth are not against the temple. Of course, their priorities are different and their focus is different. They are busy with the work, with the family, and so on and so forth. But they want to understand more about our Hindu values and Hindu culture, and they want to be involved more in the community, of course, in the community and the mainstream community. And they are not too excited about the 3-hour, 4-hour pujas and rituals. Again, as I said, they are not against religion, against those things, but being there for 3 or 4 hours and not knowing exactly what is going on has been a challenge for them. So we took it all together, and then we said we had to make a start. And we got this, we got a lot of devotee support, and of course, all of those things. And very specifically, the American-born Hindu youth has been one of our main focus. Then we said we need to put together a networking kind of a convention where we will have some speakers, of esteemed speakers, who can talk about Hindu values and Hindu culture, and also topics of interest to the youth. And also we wanted to make sure that when we organize such an event, we maximize the youth participation, and debated and brainstormed how to attract them, those kind of stuff. Then we put a group of people together, and certainly the youth community in Hindus. Then we joined hands with the Hindus of Greater Houston, the Hindu Temple of the Woodlands, and of course, Hindu University of America now. And then our volunteers' age varies from 18 to 86. So with the youth being very busy, then we realized that we as seniors have to work in the background and help them organize the event. And with that, we got the program, which is now you can see that this is on July 29th, 9 to 7:30. With a break and lunch and the evening networking reception and some music and all of those things. And then we basically said the priority for registration is for the youngsters. And with that, I am pleased to say that we have 430 people registered for the event, and now we have a waiting list. Because we have a capacity limitation, particularly for the lunch hall we have, but I think we can accommodate up to about 450 or so. So it is an overwhelming response. Of this 430 registered, 62% of them are the youth that our focus. That's the age is 16, 17 to 45 or so. And we are very pleased with that. And it is all because of our youth, and two of them are here now on the panel, reaching out to their peers, their youngsters, and he's reaching out to the universities, all of these things. There's a number of youth coming from out of town as well. Then with that, we put this program together. Ankurji, if you can put the program, please. The program, as you can see, starts with the Council General of India, DC Manjunath. His first day of work is tomorrow, 17th. He's coming to the temple tomorrow, but first day of work is tomorrow. And he is joining as a speaker, and he's very pleased with that. And also it so happens he is one of our youngsters, age 17 to 45. That kind of stuff is very interesting. Then Sugag Shukla, the executive director of the Hindus of America Foundation. And Joseph Emmett, that some of you may or may not know, he is the director of the Vedanta Institute. He is the son of Ed Emmett, our county judge. Christian has elected to become a Hindu, spent a lot of time in India, and he's going to talk about the Vedanta Institute. And a very interesting person, very interesting talk that we will all be very, very happy to listen to him. And then going down, then we have a panel by spirituality to talk about, being moderated by Dr. Madhuri Vasudevan, again, one of the youngsters. She is probably 40 or so, very much involved in spirituality. And again, in my book, the way I look at spirituality, it is primarily a service to the humanity, is what we look at spirituality. And she has a lot of youngsters, about 3 out of 4 are youngsters on that panel, below 45. Then Shobita Parthasarathi, a professor from University of Michigan, who is a director of science and technology, where the public policy interact with the science and technologies. He's going to talk about the social justice. Then we have the panel on Hindu advocacy, moderated by Dr. Rajiv Pandit. And the 2 youngsters, both are joining in the panel that will talk about what how important it is for us to have a sense of community, sense of identity, that we as a Hindus do not need to be submissive. We have to have the sense of our clarity and confidence, and then we are so successful. I think we need to, Kalyanji also hinted on that is how important for our Hindus, I think, for us to be very proud of our Hindu values and culture. And then with the lunch, then in the afternoon, we are starting with Pooja Jasrani. She is one of our youngsters who has risen to the level of the flight director at the NASA here in Houston. It's going to be a dialogue. It's a Q&A session with Dr. Ayasami Dorarajan, who is in the panel. Then we are going to have Eddie's turn. He is actually from New York. He is heading, he is the founder of the first Ganesh temple in Manhattan, New York. And he has shared many yoga and meditation lectures and classes with Deepak Chopra, a very renowned person. And he's going to be coming all the way from New York. And also he's going to stay overnight to give a yoga class to the local community the next day, Sunday. Then many of you may know already Dr. Vasudha Narayan from University of Florida, who is really a big author on many books on Hindu, and she's going to talk about the Hindu temples. And then one of our own grown-up person here, the son of a immigrant from India and born here, Arun Subramaniam, was about 2 months ago, was nominated by President Biden and confirmed by the Senate as a federal judge in New York. He's going to be a speaker, talk about today's youth as tomorrow's leaders. And then we have an important panel on entrepreneurship. I think one of the things that Hindus have excelled is being an entrepreneur, and it is so heartening and gratifying to see that our youth are spreading, diversifying themselves in various fields: medicine, engineering, journalism, law, justice, and politics as well. That is going to be moderated by one of the youngsters, Sanjay Ramabhadran, who is also the chairman for the Houston Metro. And then number of them in the panel are youngsters. So you can see the name Indra Maithili, Abhishek Balakrishnan, and Rishi Buttada is very well known, much involved in the Hindus of Greater Houston. Then artificial intelligence is a topic that a lot of youngsters express a lot of interest. We are going to touch upon that. Then one of our youngsters from the family here in Houston, who is Assistant Secretary of U.S. Commerce Department, Arun Venkataraman. Then from the Interfaith Ministry is Jody Benstein. Then after that, we are going to have our Kalyanji from the Hindu University of America introduce the HUA to all the youngsters, and then they are hosting the reception as well. Then we have a pretty elaborate dinner that evening with some music. So that's the whole program. And of course, I have to say that this program is one of the reasons that we had some overwhelming response. And I wanted to go through this slide. What is our goals and objectives? Ankurji, if you can just share that just to set the stage. There's one slide that says, yeah, it is nothing new, that it is something that we have all talked about, and Kalyanji also mentioned this, is to bring together our Hindu next generation Hindu youth community in Houston and across Texas and around the country to reinforce, embrace our Hindu values and culture. I think we have probably heard and seen some movies that how our youngsters are not up to speed on the Hindu values and culture. And then motivate and inspire them to take on more active leadership roles in various levels. And I emphasize the word mainstream community, that we don't want to be segregated. We want to be part of the mainstream community, but keep our identity. And then instill a sense of community and sense of identity. And then, of course, provide a forum and listen to renowned speakers. And it is a great networking opportunity as well. So that is how we have put the program together. And as I said, we are very pleased with the overwhelming response. And I'm going to let both Ayasami Dorarajan and Anjali Agarwal to share their talk. They have been actively involved in the planning, in executing all the tasks involved in the convention. Then later on, I'll be happy to answer questions, Ankurji. Over to you. We can hear you.
Yeah,
Hi,
Swamiji, go ahead.
Okay, well, first off, I want to thank Kalyanji and Ankurji for having us on, this webinar. It really is a great privilege to be part of this. And thank you for all the attendees for taking time out to join us. I want to start by saying, there's a lot of people behind the scenes for this convention that are really putting in a lot of work, spearheaded by Damodaran Uncle and a really involved panel. They've really put in a lot of work and a lot of selfless time to investing into this convention for us, for the future of the Hindus of Houston, for the future of Hindus of America. And it really brings us a lot of gratitude for how much work they've put in, and so I want to thank them as well. My experience with the community really it's really been amazing. It's really been amazing to see how people have really stepped up. This initiative, like Damodaran Uncle has brought up, has been tried, people have, done it before and put in effort and tried to figure out ways to involve the next generation, and how do we transition to leadership roles for our next generation at the temple and within Hinduism in general. And this time it really feels like they're putting in a ton of effort. And so my experience has really been amazing. I've been really proud to see how people of all different ages, from people fresh out of high school to people in the retirement, to those of us in our in our 40s and kind of middle age, to see how well everybody stepped up, and everybody really is bringing a lot to the table. And it's really been remarkable how well everybody's collaborating and how much effort everybody's put in. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about today were, kind of one, what does it mean to be a Hindu in 2023 and a Hindu in America? And specifically, what challenges do we face today that were different 20 years ago? What challenges do we face in America versus how when our parents grew up in India or in the state of Tamil Nadu? And what challenges does that kind of put in front of us in terms of how we practice? I think that it's different growing up here in America versus growing up in India, where there's temples everywhere. Hinduism's constantly around you. And here in Houston, we grew up going to the temple. My father was very involved at Meenakshi Temple, and so it was kind of always around us. But as we grow and through the different decades of life, different things become a priority. It's not so much constantly around you. You have to really figure out ways to keep it incorporated. And I think even in 2023, some things that may seem like challenges could also be used for us, like the advancement of technology. 20 years ago, technology was totally different than it is today. Now, technology is always in our face. These webinars, our cell phones are always with us. And although sometimes they can seem as a hindrance in life, I think there's ways as Hindus we can figure out a way to use those for us, and how to help promote Hinduism, and how to encourage, disseminate information and share and connect with people like we're connecting today. I know we have some people down in Brazil. 20, 30 years ago, us connecting and speak about Hinduism with people in Brazil would probably seem a little more far-fetched, but it's pretty easy now. Another question that I wanted to talk about, or a topic, was kind of defining and constantly redefining our values as we age. I think it's an exercise me and my wife do every so often, every year or two. And I think, what your values are at 18, and what your values are at 30, and what your values are at 50, and what your values are at 70 will be somewhat different in terms of career and focus. But I think one thing that's got to stay constant is the value of religion and spirituality, and where that goes in the ranking of defining your values. We talk about, right now, I'm about to be 40, and career has taken a big sect of my life in the last 15 years. you know, since high school, and going to college, going to medical school, and the amount of work it takes to kind of put in there, and the focus that career school education takes. You know, me and my wife just had a baby girl, and she's 9 months old. So fatherhood now has kind of emerged as a high in my values. And so where does religion kind of fall in? You know, if there's 24 hours in the day, and you're spending 12 hours at work, and you're spending this many hours being a father, and this many hours being a husband, where's the cutoff for religion and spirituality? And I think one of the things that we found by most recently, you know, kind of redefining our values was that it takes an active role to squeeze it in and to make it a priority and keep it a priority. And I think, like I shared in my quote, everything I have in my life today, in terms of prosperity, has been because of the role of religion and spirituality that I've played in my life. And a big part of that is thanks to my parents, who were always kind of pushing it and keeping it at the forefront. You know, but now that I'm starting my own family, you know, me and my wife are realizing that it's really up to us. It's up to us to put that at the forefront, figure out ways to keep it at the forefront. And what we do is what's gonna go forward for our daughter and the rest of our family. And the last thing, I think that, you know, one thing that's different, maybe, and maybe it's not so different for our generation, is, you know, I always think about religion and spirituality as kind of like a Venn diagram. And for some people, the Venn diagram of religion and spirituality is like this, where they really cross over, and they're similar and they're kind of the same. For some people, they're like this: religion's over here and spirituality is all over here. And sometimes they don't have a lot of crossover. And for most of us, I think there's a little bit of crossover for both. And I think, like Damal and Uncle kind of mentioned, in our generation, we tend to think that we're busier than the previous generations. We're not. Everyone's just as busy as we were. And we tend to come up with excuses of why we can't go to the temple, or why we can't do this, or, you know, or why we can't attend stuff. And our kids have all these activities and whatnot. But I think our generation really seeks a little bit more spirituality than maybe our previous generation, and really in terms of service. And I think one thing that's going to be important for us to figure out how to really incorporate service in conjunction with our religion. And I think that'll make a really big impact for our generation and our kids going forward. You know, the temple was a cornerstone of my childhood, and, you know, we were there every single week for 18 years and going forward. And my parents still go probably every single week. But the reality is that a lot has to go in for the temple to be what the temple it is for us. And when I say temple for us, I'm specifically referring to the Meenakshi temple, but every temple around the country. A lot of work goes into keeping and maintaining, and for us to receive what we want for the temple, there's a lot of people in the background doing work to keep it what it is. And I think for all of us, it's going to be important for us to realize that if we want to receive, then we have to give. We have to put work in. We have to be part of it. We have to take part. When people are taking initiative, like Damal and Uncle are, and all the other uncles and aunties on the panel and the committee, people are taking time out of their schedule to invest in this for us. And we got to do the same. We have to take time out of our schedules, whether we're busy or not, whether we're doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, whatever we're doing. We got to invest in the temple. We got to invest in religion. We got to invest in our communities, because if we don't, then there won't be anything left for the next generation. And so beyond looking at what it is for us, you know, I'm starting to look at it, what it is for my daughter, you know, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. What she's going to have is what I put into it, because what I had is what my parents put into it for me. So I really think we have to really decide what we want it to look like 20 years from now in the future. And we got to take time out of our schedules, and we have to invest in it if we want to receive. So thanks for having me on the panel, and really is a privilege. So
Thank you, Dr. Ayasami ji. Anjali ji, let's hear from you, please.
Namaste, everyone. My name is Anjali Agarwal, and I used to live in Houston for a long time. So all of my connections are there. The Hindu community is so vibrant and amazing. And I recently moved to Austin, where there's not as much of a vibrant Hindu community. And I've realized how important it is for there to be temples and organizations and people keeping our religion alive and thriving. So I love being involved in the Houston community, and I feel very grateful that I was able to get involved with this initiative. I personally think this is one of the most important events that will happen across America this year. Bringing youth together, not only for just spirituality, but for advocacy and entrepreneurship as well. I think that is revolutionary. And I know this will be successful. And if we can get this done in other states as well, I think as a youth, I think it'll be extremely instrumental in protecting our values. I'm 19 years old, so I have a lot of experience with people in my generation and how they view our religion. I would say 90% are not interested in learning more or participating in any part of their religion. And so as someone who was always passionate, it was hard for me to make friends and connect with people. And so I think that through something like this, through spirituality, through advocacy, through entrepreneurship, we can kind of create a sense of community within youth for them to want to learn more and get involved. Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma, is absolutely the most beautiful thing to exist. There are so many different types of religions. If you want to be like an atheist, if you want to have some sort of belief where you only want one God or you want any number of gods, everything is in Hinduism. It's like people say, it's a way of life. You choose how to live. And I feel like if people in our generation understood the beauty of that, then they would want to learn more. They would want to get involved. And so I really hope that this convention can open some eyes and light a fire within people my age or youth under 45, so that we can keep things going for our future generations. And so I believe that advocacy was going to be a huge part of creating a sense of identity within Hindus when they know what kind of issues that their people are facing just because they're Hindu in different countries, and learning all of the different beautiful parts of our religion. I feel like it'll definitely create a sense of identity within them. And I've been involved with kind of being part of the event committee for this event, and I've seen how it works, how youth get involved, what incentives, what interests them, what doesn't interest them. And I believe that we've become very successful in interesting youth and attracting them because we have such a wide variety of topics that we're going to have at this convention. And we have a pretty good number, and I expect this event to be a complete success. And we plan on having this event in the future as well. We plan to make Next Gen an annual thing, and the Next Gen convention annual thing. And we hope that more youth will want to get involved and will want to learn more about their religion.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Looking forward to this one and future ones as well. I'm going to be there in Houston. It is going to be in person. I'm going to hand it over to Kalyanji to moderate questions and answers. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave a little bit early. I had a death in the family, but don't want to talk about that too much. But it's always a pleasure. Glad that Hindu University of America can play this pivotal role. And Kalyanji, if you can help moderate the Q&A for the rest of the panelists, that'd be great. Thank you. Dhanyawad.
Okay, terrific. Great. So first of all, what is exciting is that in just putting together this conference, there is some kind of a dialogue that is at least being attempted between the generations, across the generations, right? So I'd like to start by asking Anjali a question. When you said 90% of your generation is just not interested in Hinduism at all, right? That's a pretty stunning number. Now, if you were to sort of reflect a little bit on why that is the case, what would you say? What are the root causes for that situation?
So I've realized that a lot of other religions have an immense sort of sense of community. And I feel like Hindus probably lack that sense of community. And so that is the reason why people my age don't feel connected to the community or their religion. And the second biggest thing is they're not educated as to what Hinduism is, what Sanatana Dharma is, what are the possible roots, how much is in our scriptures, what they can follow. They aren't educated on that. And I feel like through events like these, we can educate these children and tell them, I know that you understand that you don't really feel like you have a connection to God or your community, but there are things that you can explore. There are different practices that you can learn and follow. And I hope that I have a lot of experience with at least the Houston community, and it's very, very difficult. I have tried to make so many organizations, so many bring my people my age together, at least in college or apart from college as well, Young Hindus of Greater Houston. It is so difficult to get youth together in one place, to motivate them to come. It seems like sometimes they only want to attend when something fun's happening, like Garba or Holi, and that's when they come out. Otherwise, you'll never see them. And so I want to change. I want them to be interested. I want them to want to learn more. I want them to have a sense of community.
Yeah, great. So, Dr. Ayaswamy, I know you're almost 40 and you have maybe a slightly evolving perspective. Let me ask you this: Is it the case that when young people become parents themselves, begin to have children, and they get naturally a little more interested and concerned about what they are transmitting to the next generation, what they are going to give to the next generation in terms of values and a foundation to live by. And then that causes a little spurt of interest in wanting to know more about Hinduism. And it kind of emerges naturally when you become a parent. Is there any reality to that perception?
Yeah, Kalyanji, I definitely think there's some reality to it. I always think back to my dad always says religion and spirituality, it starts at the home. It starts in the home. You kind of grow up. My parents taking us to the temple, even if we didn't want to go, and dragging us and making us sit there and sit through the pujas. And then I kind of distinctly remember a few points in life. When I was 12, we had a Hindu convention. We used to have these Hindu summer camps at Meenakshi Temple, and we used to go off-site. And I kind of remember when I was 12 years old, one of those conventions, for the first time in my life, I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, this is what it means to be Hindu." I kind of, for the first time, as I was kind of going through that pre-pubertal age, before I was becoming a teenager, thinking for the first time, identifying, oh, I am a Hindu, not because my parents told me, because I felt like I was. And then kind of in your 20s, after college, kind of trying to getting into med school and doing a little soul searching, kind of having that happen again, where I found myself really turning to my religion and spirituality. And I was having a little bit of a tough time getting into medical school and getting into residency. And I was searching for myself at the temple and finding that grounding again. And then now, as we kind of, fast forward, 10 years goes by quick when you're trying to progress in your career and all that stuff. And then then the next thing is everybody expects you to have a family. They expect you to get married and start having kids. As me and my wife have, had our first daughter, I do think that's a reality. I think that you start thinking of yourself less, obviously, and you start thinking about the future. You see yourself in your daughter. I think for many of us, we always, you see your parents, and there's parts of your parents you want to be like, there's parts of your parents you don't want to be like, and then in the end you realize when you kind of hit 30s and 40s, you're just like your parents. You're just like there's ways that you're just like your mom, you're just like your dad, and that becomes a reality for you, and you realize that's going to be a reality for your daughter, and your son, or any kids you have. And I definitely think that's a reality. that it just kind of hits you when you do create a family and you realize that your kids are just an extension of you, and what you do for yourself, what you do for them, those values you embody. It's not what you tell them to do. What they ultimately become is what they see. And you can tell them to be Hindu. You know, my parents can tell me to be this and tell me to be that, tell me to go to this puja. But whatever Hinduism and spirituality I have in me today, it's really just what I saw them practicing, not what they told me to do. And that kind of makes me think about what my daughter's going to do. It's not going to be what I tell her to read, what scriptures I tell her, what bhajans I tell her to sing, or what mantras I tell her to recite. What she sees us do is what she will emulate. And so definitely becomes a reality into the subconscious. One thing that Anjali was touched, you asked Anjali about that question about why is it that you feel like 90% don't matter or whatever. And I think the one thing that our generation, growing up and being born in this country, go through that our parents and people in India may not understand and experience, is that being a Hindu in America is actually a little bit challenging when you're a kid, and going through school, and people fail to realize how much like other kids make fun of us at school, or they'll be like, oh, you pray to gods, you pray to elephants, and things that may seem as like, a soft joke, but can actually be somewhat traumatizing to a child.
Yeah.
And during really formative years, nobody ever makes fun of kids for going to church or praying to Jesus, right? Because it's very commonplace in this country. And nobody in India would ever tell you, oh, you prayed an elephant, that's weird, but kids in this country, unfortunately, just because it's not, they're not malicious, but they're also just, they're unaware, there's not a lot of awareness around Hinduism. It can be traumatizing, and that can really affect the child's psyche as they're growing and make them not want to be Hindu subconsciously, and that's kind of a traumatizing experience. And also, in terms of, what does Hinduism give back for me? When we hit 20 and 30, you ask, well, I'm going to do what gives back to me, right? And so what does Hinduism give back to me? For our parents' generation, Meenakshi Temple and all the temples in the country really served as community. When they first came here as first generation Indians, the temple was their home. Outside of the house, the temple was where they saw their friends. The temples where they built all their relationships. The temples where they raised their children, including us, me and Anjali and all of us. And for our generation, it's not the same. Meenakshi Temple is not, it's not a dire need of community for us. We go because we want to go. We go because there's attendance to go, but it doesn't give us the same need that it fulfilled for our parents' generation. So I think those two things that play a very important role of why our generation maybe doesn't feel as Hindu, maybe doesn't feel like they need it as much as maybe our parents did when they came here.
Yeah, it's very interesting. This thing that you have brought up about being made fun of in school and even college and so on, right? And even in the professional environments, even though it becomes a little more polite then. Recently, I just want to share a conversation I was having with someone. All of us know that ChatGPT is the rage now, right? If you go to ChatGPT and you ask a question, can you tell a joke about Jesus? It'll give you a nice disclaimer. It is not appropriate to make fun of religious communities, so we will not participate in making jokes about Jesus. If you ask ChatGPT, can you tell a joke about Muhammad? It will say, oh, it's not proper to make fun of religious figures and personalities and so on, so we will not participate in making jokes. Now, if you say to ChatGPT, can you tell a joke about Ram? It'll tell you a joke about Ram.
Mm-hmm.
If you tell ChatGPT, why don't you say another joke about Ram? And make a joke about Ram and Sita. Make a joke about Krishna. ChatGPT has no problem making jokes about Rama, Krishna, Shiva, etc. But it'll strictly guard this boundary, this fortress called, we will not make jokes about Christianity and Islam. It seems to be just another manifestation of the same problem. Anyway, your comments, both of you.
Well, yeah, it's very it's enlightening for you to share that, and what that tells me, and what that makes me think about is the level of tolerance, right? The level of tolerance of Hindus generally have have been known as very tolerant people to, and I would say tolerant maybe to a fault. And what that tells you, see, ChatGPT, it's artificial intelligence, right? So it tells you that level of tolerance, that Christians and Muslims, they wouldn't tolerate joking about the religion, but we will, is actually built into the subconscious of everybody, including artificial intelligence, which is very, very, very fascinating and unfortunate.
Anjali, you have any comments?
Yes, I believe that I feel like the world is evolving, and what other religions have is they're simply unapologetic for being Hindu or for being Christian or for being Muslim or for being whatever. And if we want to see a change in how we're treated, we need to be unapologetic as well. I understand growing up as like minorities, we might feel embarrassed or bullied or anything like that. But if our parents or if our community taught us to be unapologetic, you're Hindu, this is the beauty of your religion, understand it, understand how special you are and how your ancestors fought to keep that religion alive. Be unapologetic, simply. Don't take any form of disrespect. And I feel like Hindus are disrespected. And if we understood our religion, if we fought to protect it, if we advocated for ourselves, that could be avoided. And it all starts, it's not too late. It's not too late. It all starts from here. We can use social media. We can use these events. We can use like Hindu University of America. That is an amazing platform to educate our generation and other people in America that this is what we are. This is Hinduism, and it's beautiful. And there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed about, and we should embrace it. And we should form a sense of community and be unapologetic about who we are. And if we see other people doing that, the rest of us will follow. But it has to start with some people first.
Okay. Now, it's a very interesting point you're making, that you're saying we should be unapologetic. And what it implies is that we as a community tend to be apologetic more often than not, right? And in fact, we're constantly called to apologize for this and that, apologize for caste and idolatry and oppression and so many things that are misrepresentations of our lived experience, right? And I want to go back to what you said, Anjali, that there is a huge gap in education, especially for that 90% of the younger generation that you pointed to, who in some ways you could say get bullied and shamed into kind of staying away from anything Hindu because it's too confusing, it's too threatening, and then what people want to do is simply assimilate and become white and become part of the mainstream culture and sort of give up their association with their own traditions and so on. So I also want to point to something structurally within the Hindu society. Anjali, you said that we sometimes lack a sense of community within the Hindu community. And in fact, it's possible to go to Hindu mandirs and just do your own thing and come out and never really become part of a congregation or a community per se, right? I mean, one has to, in fact, work to become part of a community. It takes work. But then here is an interesting dynamic within the Hindu world, right? If you become part of a sampradaya, an active part of a sampradaya, like for example, say the Swaminarayan Sampradaya, or the Chinmaya Mission Sampradaya, or the Arshavidya Gurukula, or ISKCON Sampradaya, or any one of those numerous traditions and sub-traditions within Sanatana Dharma, then is it true that the kids, the youngsters who become part of these sampradayas, they stand a better chance. They have a better opportunity to not be so apologetic and maybe stand up a little bit for their traditions and culture and so on. What's your view on that?
So I believe that these organizations are doing an amazing, amazing job at keeping our values alive. And I feel like to a certain extent, being individualistic, like someone said, like having these sects like be so centered like within themselves, I feel like that is an amazing way to keep values alive. Like for BAPS, I've seen a lot of BAPS kids who are, like I said, unapologetic for being part of BAPS. But I'm someone who never really belonged to any temple organization. I'm someone, when I got involved in the Hindu community, I got involved in Hindus of Greater Houston. I never belonged to BAPS or Arya Samaj or anything else. I belonged to Hindus of Greater Houston. And that is what we need to change. We need to change it from I belong to BAPS or I belong to this or I belong to that. We need to change it to I am Hindu. I am a Sanatani. Once we do that, that will create a sense of community, not only that I'm BAPS or I'm Arya Samaj, it will create a sense of identity. I am Hindu. And that is what we need if we want to survive outside of India. If we want to survive like in a place where everyone else identifies only as Christian or only as Muslim. So if we can do that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, see, interesting, Anjali. So I would just offer a slightly nuanced view about that, right? Mm-hmm. See, it is impossible for Hindus to lose their intense affiliation with their respective sampradayas, gurus, and acharyas, and then give it up in order to become, I am Hindu, become part of a broader identity. Is it possible? See, here's the question, right? Is it possible for our identities to be multi-layered, in the sense that I am part of Swaminarayan or ISKCON or the Meenakshi temple? I'm intensely part of those communities. So and I'm also Hindu, right? So that's the question. Yeah.
So when people introduce themselves to non-Hindus, I personally would suggest, if we want to look at the greater good of the community, I totally identify as BAPS or ISKCON or Arya Samaj or anything else. But when people don't even know what BAPS or ISKCON or Arya Samaj is, explaining to them that I'm a Hindu from BAPS or I'm a Hindu from ISKCON, like totally, I completely agree that a multi-layered identity it's even more beautiful. I think it's even more beautiful than just calling yourself a Hindu. But also kind of educating people on this is Hinduism and this is how diverse it is, but we're still one community is important to protect our values as a whole. Because a lot of these kids, even though they're very good at retaining Hindus or retaining their values, there are some kids that grow up and maybe sometimes don't affiliate. And so if they're still Hindu at the end of the day, that is a good thing if they identify as at least Hindu.
Great. Dr. Ayaswamy, any comments from you on this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody brings up good points. I think, for us in the States, it's so apparent because we're such small communities where we feel like we need to defend ourselves as, say, like, I'm a Saivite, I'm a BAPS follower, or I'm this and that, or and then the second defense is I'm Hindu, because we're so small. In India, where the community is, that's the majority, it's not so apparent. I think that, somebody in the comments, I think Chitra made a comment about, I think the Gujarati community does a better job with the next gen. I think that, I think one thing we can do is learn from each other, and see how other people do stuff. And a lot of it goes back to us, being tolerant and our level of tolerance and how that affects our children and whatnot. And I think that doing these things, like, my wife always talks about the big crux of their family is Sai Baba followers and very involved in the Sai Baba community. And Bal Vikas was a huge thing for them. She says, what they have in life and what they do now with all the community service, really what the crux that was going to Bal Vikas every Sunday. And and their parents, who his dad, my father-in-law was a CEO. I mean, he was a CFO at a company, and very busy, just like everybody else, but still took out that Sunday morning to drive from the Woodlands all the way across town to make sure that his children went to Bal Vikas, and invested in them in that way, right? And so these things like Bal Vikas, these communities help our children and help us, give us that community, so that when we go back to school and maybe we feel bullied, now we have that community to turn to, those people that do understand us. So I think those are really important things for us to make sure that we're part of, and to make sure our children are part of, to give them that community. So when they go out in the real world and they feel like they need to defend themselves as Hindus, they have that community to defend themselves with, and not feeling like alone. Because when they feel like alone, they don't have that, have that community, then that's when the Hindu attrition rate will continue to go faster than we want it to.
Great. So I would like to offer a couple of remarks and then have the last words from Damodaranji. So, Hindu University of America is really a resource for Hindus at whatever life stage they are at. When the call comes, when Hindus want to know a little bit more about Hinduism, when the bell rings, so to speak, HUA will be available for people to begin a journey of exploration, investigation, and really deep engagement with the enormously sophisticated ocean of Hindu thought. Okay, and I can say for myself, I went through my own periods of profound confusion and soul searching in my 20s until I found a teacher, a guru, and then slowly began to recognize the tremendous sophistication of Hindu thought at so many different levels. Therefore, here I am, with HUA, and it's available for all of you. And whenever you're ready, you're welcome to come and take a course and get started on an educational journey. With that, Damodaranji, why don't you take the final words and give us your thoughts on both this webinar and the upcoming event in Houston.
Yeah, thank you, Kalyanji. And again, I'm very proud of the comments and the input that Ayasami and Anjali had. Very, very revealing, and a lot for us to learn from what they have said. So in the convention, again, as I said at the beginning, I'm very grateful that Hindu University of America is joining, as I think it's a great exposure, because a lot of us, including myself, didn't know about Hindu University of America. It is a great thing to know, and this is a great exposure. And the success of this convention, I believe, is going to be the follow-up. We are having a feedback survey from all the attendees during and after the convention. And then we need to have events somewhat similar to this 6 months or 1 year later, as Anjali said, hopefully across the country, for us to have continued to keep the youth engaged, have them have a dialogue with us as to the values of the Hindu values and culture. That is a success. And I certainly hope, I'm very confident our youngsters will take it from here. After this convention, all we can do is to support them. And always I say one thing, for example, if you take Meenakshi Temple, our expenses is $2 million per year. And very, very fortunately, we have more income than expenses. But after this first generation is gone, if the temple is going to survive, unless youth are involved and supportive, we will become a museum. And again, the temple has to evolve to accommodate their interest, become an institution, and that's the hope. And we are certainly behind our youth. I'm again very proud of the youth that we have in the community, and the Hindus of Greater Houston. This is the first time in Houston we are bringing all the Hindus together, and the HGH has been a big part of that. And with that, Kalyanji, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you and Ankurji and others to participate in the convention on 29th. Thank you so much.
very much. And I am looking forward to it myself. And one thing I would say, this if you take this like a challenge, right? The challenge of how to make the Hindu temples responsive and relevant to the younger generations, not just one time, but ongoingly for future generations. And if we recognize that that's a challenge that the immigrant generation has not adequately addressed and taken on, right? And that is a big challenge sitting right in front of us, right? If we look at that, then I think there is an immense opportunity for young people to take some ownership for that challenge and study it, as a problem, as a challenge, as an opportunity, really reflect on what kind of solutions and approaches can be generated, do pilot studies and pilot initiatives, just like this one, the conference that you're all putting together, and really work with the temples around the country, because there are more than 1,000 and a few hundred temples in North America. And the challenge that Dr. Damodaran has been articulating is certainly not unique to the Meenakshi Temple in Houston. It's pervasive. So this is a huge opportunity, and I think the younger generation has to step up to this, because there is an inherent difficulty for the older generation to really address it adequately. It has to be, they are going to hand over these temples. It's just like one day I will hand over Hindu University of America to the younger generation. Somebody must be there to take it and really make it an extraordinary university. Similarly, the Hindu temples have to be owned and taken over by the younger generation for the future of Hinduism in the United States of America. Anjali, you had your hand up, please.
Yes, so I've been working more online as well, in the Houston community, but online I work globally. Like I run something called Sanatani Sisters, which is advocacy, creating a sense of community within Hindu women, and kind of teaching whatever I know, a lot about yoga and different parts of Hinduism that people might not know of. And I have connected with a lot of youth all across America. And even though these kids who take leadership is they're rare, there are some, and they are very, very promising, and it inspires me to work more. And I know that there is a very good chance that we'll be successful if we keep at it. And I'm not scared. I absolutely believe there will be more youth who will get involved in events like these and take initiative.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. And I think on that note, we will conclude this webinar. I'll say thank you to all the participants, panelists here, as well as all the attendees who joined us today. Okay, thank you. And I look forward to attending the event in Houston. Namaste, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kalyanji. Thank you, Ayasami, Anjali. Yeah. Thank you, Taraji, joining too.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yeah.